She's not just saying it, she means it. And every word is a clue, a weapon, a signal. Most men ignore it, and then they wonder how they lost everything, while the guy who was always around, always smiling at her, was already inside the walls. You feel something's off. You hear the words, "He understands me better." You're overthinking it. You don't trust me, and you try to explain it away. But deep down, you know, she's crossing a line, and that line isn't somewhere in the future. It's now. If she's saying this, she's cheating with someone you know. If you've ever felt blindsided, betrayed, or emotionally gutted because you didn't see it coming, this is your wake-up call. I'm building the Stoic Relationship Blueprint, the most powerful ebook ever created for men. It's the map you were never given, the one they never wanted you to see. And as we dive deep into this truth today, understand this: you have a choice. Either wake up now, or keep being the man who gets played, manipulated, and left behind. Drop a comment below. I choose truth. Let's get into it. Number 1. He understands me better. When she says, "He understands me better," your blood doesn't boil by accident. It boils because somewhere deep down, even before you have proof, you know something sacred is being shifted behind your back. This sentence doesn't come from nowhere. It's not just her talking about a friend. This is layered code, a confession wrapped in subtlety. What she's really saying is, there's someone else, close, accessible, already part of your world, who is now occupying the emotional space that used to be yours. And here's the deeper truth. Women don't make these comparisons out loud unless they're preparing a new narrative for their lives, one that doesn't include you at the center anymore. Ask yourself, why would she say something that dangerous if she wasn't already drifting? Because when a woman starts comparing you to another man, she's no longer trying to connect with you. She's trying to distance herself emotionally while keeping her options emotionally open. And the man she's talking about, he's already been welcomed into her inner circle, invited into conversations that used to be reserved for your ears, now becoming her new source of comfort, validation, and dopamine. You might think it's innocent. You might tell yourself you're being too intense, but remember this: emotional infidelity starts with conversations, not sex, not touch, words. And when she's telling you he understands her, she's saying she's no longer understood by you, and therefore no longer accountable to you emotionally. That understanding becomes the weapon. It allows her to justify the slow drip of loyalty from your hands into his. This doesn't happen in a week. It begins with casual mentions. He's funny. He's smart. He listens. And soon, she's telling him things she used to tell you. She's not just laughing at his jokes. She's looking to him for feedback, for approval, for reassurance. And when she fights with you, she vents to him. Ask yourself, who is the first person she shares her real thoughts with now? Who does she turn to for comfort? Because whoever that is, that's the man she's getting closer to emotionally, even if she's still sleeping in your bed. The worst part? He might be smiling in your face, calling you bro, acting like he respects your relationship while secretly becoming the emotional center of hers. And she allows it, justifying every interaction by calling it platonic. Because as long as no physical line is crossed, she believes she's still loyal. But you feel it, the shift, the emotional pull. Her attention is elsewhere, her tone softer when she talks about him, her defenses higher when you bring up his name. And you, standing there, trying to be reasonable, trying to suppress what you know, betray yourself by staying silent. Don't. A Stoic doesn't react. He responds, and your response must be this: protect your mind, your peace, and your standards. If a woman can say another man understands her better and still expects your devotion, she's not confused. She's testing. Set your boundary clearly and powerfully. Don't argue. Don't beg. Make it known. Emotional fidelity is just as sacred as physical. And if she can't commit to that, you'll find someone who can. This is where self-respect begins, not when you find out the worst, but when you decide that you won't tolerate the soft betrayals that come long before the hard ones. You build your strength daily. Get in the gym. Push heavy weight, because a strong body reinforces a strong mind. Journaling your thoughts will train your emotional clarity. Write your goals. Break them down. Stick to them. Read philosophy, not just to sound intelligent, but to train your soul to stay grounded when the world around you shakes. One of the most powerful teachings of Stoicism is this: the obstacle is the way. Her emotional drift, that's your obstacle. Your way is not to panic, it's to rebuild, reinvent, and rise. She will notice, but by then, she won't have access, because by then, you'll be living in a realm of clarity she no longer qualifies for. And if you're ever tempted to lower your standard to keep her around, remember, every time you tolerate emotional betrayal, you're training her that your loyalty comes without consequence. Demand alignment. If she can't meet you there, let her walk. You're not losing a partner, you're shedding weight. Number 2, you're overthinking it. This phrase is designed to make you question yourself, your instincts, your inner compass. Your overthinking it is her first line of defense when her loyalty is being questioned. Not because you're wrong, but because you're dangerously close to being right. She knows you saw something. Maybe it was the way she touched his arm for a second too long. Maybe it was how fast she locked her phone screen when you walked into the room. Or maybe it was just her vibe. Changed, distant, passive-aggressive without a clear trigger. You bring it up, gently, calmly. You ask if anything's going on, and she smiles, tilts her head, and softly says, "You're overthinking it." And just like that, the burden of proof is no longer hers. It's yours. Now you're stuck, second-guessing, questioning your own mind, wondering if maybe, just maybe, you're being too sensitive. This is where most men lose the battle, not because they don't have evidence, but because they've been conditioned to suppress their inner voice. But Stoicism teaches something different. It teaches us to separate emotion from evidence, impulse from insight. You saw what you saw, you felt what you felt, and that matters. Emotional awareness is not weakness. It's wisdom. She will call it paranoia. But ask yourself, why would she need to silence your observation unless there was something to hide? Think back to the last few weeks. Has she suddenly started working late? Does she always go silent when she texts in front of you? Has she introduced a new friend who somehow knows too much about your life? These are not overthoughts. These are signals. You don't have to explode. You don't have to accuse, but you do need to act. Start by setting internal rules. If she shifts blame instead of offering clarity, note it. If she becomes hostile when asked a calm question, note it. If you feel more anxious around her than at peace, ask yourself, is this the energy of loyalty or betrayal? A man who values himself doesn't dismiss what his gut tells him just because it's inconvenient. He investigates, he observes, he adapts. Take control of your life, one habit at a time. Begin your mornings with purpose. Cold shower, 20 push-ups, hydrate, meditate for 5 minutes. Every single day, sharpen your awareness. Because a focused man sees what distracted men miss. Don't just float through life hoping to catch red flags. Train yourself to see them coming. Don't confront her in weakness. Confront in composure. I noticed you've been distant. I'm not overthinking. I'm paying attention. And if I feel like something's off, I trust myself enough to say so. Speak like this, and you'll either expose the truth or be respected for your self-respect. You don't need to be loud, just resolute. And if she continues to dismiss your instincts without addressing the underlying behaviors, that's clarity. Clarity that you don't belong in a space where your emotional intelligence is weaponized against you. Your peace is sacred. Anyone who attacks it under the guise of your overthinking it doesn't deserve access to your world. And here's something most men never hear. You're not too sensitive. You're just waking up. You're not broken. You're becoming aware. And awareness, once awakened, can never be put back to sleep. Embrace it. Live by it. Grow from it. Because the moment you stop believing your gut is the moment you start believing someone else's lie. And a man who trusts another's lie over his own truth becomes a slave, not a sovereign. Number 3. You don't trust me. There are words she speaks not to inform but to manipulate. You don't trust me is not a question, it's a test. A test to see how much of your power she can seize with a single sentence. This line doesn't come from innocence. It's not her seeking connection or security. It's a diversion tactic, a smokescreen designed to make you defend your awareness instead of asking for accountability. It flips the power dynamic. Suddenly, you're no longer assessing her actions. You're busy proving yourself. And that's the trap. Because now the spotlight has moved off her behavior and onto your emotions. Now you're explaining, clarifying, overcompensating. And all the while, she's watching to see how far she can stretch the leash. Ask yourself, why would someone secure in their integrity need to weaponize trust? Because when people know they're dancing close to a boundary, they don't want clarity. They want control. So instead of being honest about the energy shifts, the strange habits, the hidden messages, she chooses the path of manipulation cloaked in vulnerability. You don't trust me comes laced with faux innocence, but its purpose is domination. It places you on trial, and too many men fold at that moment. They apologize, they minimize, they say things like, "No, of course I do," without ever receiving a straight answer about the behavior that sparked the concern in the first place. But here's what few men understand. Trust is earned daily, not demanded defensively. Trust isn't some moral debt you owe her by default. It's a currency, and every interaction either adds to it or withdraws from it. So when she starts emotionally withdrawing while demanding blind trust, it's not your failure to believe. It's her failure to maintain credibility. You need to understand the weight of your instinct. Think back. Has she ever turned your questions into accusations? Has she ever cried instead of answering you directly? Has she ever made you feel like protecting your peace made you the enemy? That's not trust. That's deflection. That's control. And you need to reclaim it. A Stoic mind doesn't react to emotional tactics. It observes them, discerns, calculates, then responds in full authority. And this is how you respond: calmly, clearly, firmly. Trust isn't about believing blindly. It's about consistency. And if your actions create confusion, it's my right to ask without being made to feel guilty. That's power. And when she hears that, she'll do one of two things. She'll either meet you in that clarity and build forward, or she'll panic because you've become unmanageable. Either way, you've won, because a man who guards his peace without apology is a man who refuses to be emotionally outsourced. And don't just stop there. Reinforce that internal standard with external discipline. Start keeping the promises you make to yourself. Get your sleep right. Fix your posture. Cut off distractions. Revisit the books you said you'd read and actually read them. Write down the 5 habits that are making you weaker and replace each one with a habit that makes you stronger. Why? Because the more you trust yourself, the less you'll beg for trust from others. The man who is deeply aligned internally never needs to scream for understanding externally. He moves with a kind of stillness that can't be manufactured. a kind of poise that unnerves manipulators. And if she notices that change in you and starts pulling harder at the emotional strings, you'll see it clearly for what it is. Not intimacy, but desperation. You'll be able to look her in the eye and say, "This isn't about whether I trust you. It's about whether you're trustworthy." That's when you shift the entire dynamic. That's when the power returns to where it belongs. In you. Number 4. It just happened. No, it didn't. Nothing just happens. Not when it comes to betrayal. That phrase is a lie dressed in helplessness. And if you believe it, it's not her you've betrayed. It's yourself. It just happened is the final act in a long play she's been writing in secret. The moments of eye contact that lingered too long. The little inside jokes they shared in front of you. The way she started dressing up more for her coworker than for date night. That text thread that always got deleted. The just friends status that somehow included private lunches and late-night phone calls. And you knew. You didn't want to know, but you knew. And when it finally came to light, when the evidence spilled out and she could no longer hide behind emotional half-truths, she dropped the nuclear phrase, "It just happened." But what does that even mean? That in the heat of a moment, gravity pulled her toward him. That one thing led to another like a tragic accident. No, what she's doing is minimizing, shrinking the weight of betrayal into something accidental so you'll feel bad for holding her accountable. Don't. Because the truth is, before that night, before that kiss, that bed, that message, there were 100 choices made in the dark. Doors she walked through, lines she ignored. And each of those moments required intent, not confusion. And if you let her reduce it to "it just happened," you're allowing her to recast herself as the victim of circumstance rather than the architect of deception. You must see this clearly, and you must respond with clarity. Stoicism teaches, first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That applies here. What kind of man do you want to be? The man who ignores the truth because it's easier to pretend it didn't happen? Or the man who stares reality in the face and refuses to lose his soul in someone else's chaos? You want to heal. Start rebuilding yourself from the ground up, not to prove anything to her, but to reclaim everything she made you question. Clean your environment, your room, your car, your calendar. Start building routines that remind you of your own reliability. Cook your meals, track your expenses, say no to things that drain your time, and stop negotiating with people who lie, even if you love them, especially if you love them. Because betrayal doesn't just break trust, it rewrites your memory, makes you question every moment, every smile, every "I love you." And the only antidote to that mental chaos is structure, ritual, standards, and above all, boundaries. Boundaries are not rules to control others. They are declarations of what you refuse to tolerate. So when someone cheats and says, "It just happened," your boundary should respond, "Then I just stopped making room for you." You don't owe explanations. You don't owe second chances to someone who couldn't even be honest about their first offense. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself healing. You owe yourself the life you were building before their betrayal derailed it. And healing doesn't start with closure. It starts with courage. Courage to accept that what happened cannot be undone, but what you do next can be your greatest act of power. So go train your body until your sweat writes a new story. Journal your thoughts until your clarity silences your doubts. Read one page every day from books that make your mind stronger. Because when you grow, not in reaction to her, but in pursuit of who you were always meant to become, you win a war far greater than any breakup. You become a man who is immune to manipulation because he has made truth his ally. And when she sees you thriving in solitude, not faking strength, but truly building it, she'll realize what she lost. But by then, you won't care, because by then, you'll understand. Real peace was never in her hands. It was always in yours. And this time, you're never giving it away. Number 5. Stop being jealous. This is one of the most manipulative phrases you'll ever hear from a woman when your instincts are sharpening and your vision is becoming clearer. Stop being jealous is not her asking you to trust, it's her asking you to stop watching. It's her plea not for peace, but for freedom, from accountability, from clarity, from boundaries. It sounds soft, but it's an assault on your inner compass. Think about the moments it gets used. When she laughs too long at his jokes, when she lingers a little too close, when her eyes light up in his presence in ways they haven't in yours in weeks, maybe months. You bring it up, calmly even, not accusing but seeking reassurance. And instead of transparency, you're met with that dagger in disguise. Stop being jealous. Suddenly, you're not the man trying to understand. You're the man being painted as insecure. But let's be honest, most men are not irrationally jealous. They've just been taught to distrust their instincts. Jealousy in its toxic form is rooted in control and insecurity, but jealousy in its intuitive form is a signpost, pointing you to something that feels misaligned. And the truth is, in most relationships where betrayal brews, that feeling arrives long before the facts. You see her phone habits shift. You notice she starts to look at her messages like they're secrets. You pick up on the way she talks about someone new with too much enthusiasm, or how her schedule becomes too packed to fit you in while her screen time increases. You ask her about it, not out of fear, but out of awareness, and she tells you you're overreacting. But you're not overreacting. You're finally reacting. You're finally listening to what your body, your energy, your presence is trying to tell you. And when she uses jealousy as the weapon, it's to buy more time. Time to keep building a connection somewhere else while you slowly learn to doubt your own thoughts. This is where you need to stop, breathe, step back, and reframe. Stoic philosophy teaches us to observe emotion without becoming enslaved to it. The emotion is not the enemy, it's the signal. The job of a Stoic man is not to suppress his feelings, but to investigate them without panic. And this is the move. When you feel jealous, ask yourself, am I feeling threatened because of past trauma? Or am I noticing patterns that suggest emotional betrayal? If it's the second, you are not being jealous, you are being present. You are awake. And in that awareness, you don't need to accuse or explain. You act. You adjust your expectations. You communicate your boundary. Because when a woman tries to make you feel weak for noticing what's real, she's not protecting the relationship. She's protecting her freedom to act without consequence. So how do you rebuild power in these moments? First, ground yourself physically. Wake up earlier. Before you touch your phone, move. 10 push-ups, a long stretch, cold water. Get sunlight into your eyes. Your physiology affects your perception. A sluggish body doubts itself faster. You want a clear mind? Start with a strong spine. Then, review your life. Are you proud of how you show up? Are you clear on your goals? Are your finances in order? Or are you distracted by chaos because you've let yourself slide? Jealousy feels 10 times worse when you're not proud of the man you see in the mirror. But when you're aligned, when you're improving daily, that emotional tension turns into precision. You don't need to chase loyalty. You require it. You no longer debate about what's acceptable. You state it, not loudly, not defensively, but firmly as fact. Because when a woman values you, she doesn't tell you you're jealous. She gives you peace. She wants your comfort, not your confusion. And if that's not what you're experiencing, it's time to reconsider who's earning your energy. A relationship without security isn't a relationship. It's an emotional casino, and you're gambling with your peace. Fold your hand, walk away, and reinvest in yourself with everything you gave away so freely. Number 6. You're not the same anymore. Few words cut as deeply and deceptively as these. You're not the same anymore sounds like a concerned observation, but more often than not, it's a loaded judgment cloaked in disappointment. But what exactly is she saying? She's not talking about you being unkind or neglectful or dangerous. She's saying, you're not as easy to manipulate anymore. You're not as compliant. You're no longer emotionally predictable. The man who once gave unlimited access now guards his peace. The man who once agreed to everything now has boundaries. And because of that shift, she labels you as different. And in a way, she's right. You have changed. You've started asking deeper questions. You've started noticing patterns. You've stopped tolerating disrespect, and that unsettles her. Because when she could predict your responses, she could manage your emotions. But now, when you don't jump at her texts, when you don't chase her validation, when you don't entertain drama, she panics. And instead of adjusting, she accuses. She says you've changed. And here's where many men trip. They try to prove they're still the same man. They start overcompensating, repeating old behaviors, trying to convince her that their love, their loyalty, their openness is intact. But you don't win a power struggle by returning to weakness. You win it by standing firm in your growth. Ask yourself, why would someone mourn your transformation unless they were benefiting from your former dysfunction? Why would someone want the old you back unless the new you disrupts their comfort? And if your evolution is causing her to question her control, then maybe that evolution is the best thing that's ever happened to you. Because real partners celebrate growth. They encourage your standards, your boundaries, your purpose. They don't call it distance when you start focusing on your vision. They call it development. But if she resents your ambition, mocks your discipline, or uses your self-respect as a reason to pull away, then she was never in love with you, only with her access to you. And you must see that clearly. Stoicism teaches us to detach from opinions not rooted in truth. If she says you've changed, examine it. If your change is making you stronger, wiser, calmer, then her discomfort is not your responsibility. Her resistance is a mirror of her limitations, not a measure of your growth. And you keep growing. You start scheduling your days with intention. No more reactive routines. Wake, hydrate, read. Block time for your health, for your finances, for your purpose. Choose 3 tasks daily that move your life forward. 1 for the body, 1 for the mind, 1 for the future. And every night, journal. Ask yourself, did I act in alignment with who I want to be today? What drained me? What built me? If you do this for 30 days, you won't recognize yourself. You'll look back and understand exactly why she said you changed. Because you did. You stopped waiting for permission to evolve. And if that evolution cost you her comfort, so be it. Because a man who's leveling up doesn't look back at the people who preferred his downfall. He builds forward. He trains harder. He speaks slower. He listens deeper. And eventually he surrounds himself with people who see his growth not as a threat, but as a torch. Something to admire, something to match. And by then, the woman who once used change as a criticism will either rise or retreat. But either way, your path remains clear, powerful, unapologetic. Number 7, it's not what it looks like. This sentence is the final illusion. A desperate attempt to rewrite the truth after it's already been caught in plain sight. It's not what it looks like isn't an explanation. It's an erasure. An attempt to reverse time, to undo the moment your eyes met hers in disbelief and the world shifted under your feet. But deep down, you already know. Because what you saw was real. The timing wasn't off. Your gut wasn't lying. That message wasn't misunderstood. That closeness wasn't innocent. That glance between them wasn't nothing. It was everything. And the second she said, "It's not what it looks like," She told you the most confirming truth of all. It's exactly what it looks like. This phrase doesn't enter a conversation unless the damage has already been done. You don't say this when you're transparent. You say it when you've been caught. And it's meant to manipulate you into doubting the reality in front of your face. To make you second-guess what you witnessed with your own eyes, heard with your own ears, and felt in the deep pit of your chest. But this is the moment you either lose your clarity forever, or you reclaim your self-respect for good. Because in that split second of confusion, one of two things will happen. You will talk yourself out of the truth to protect the fantasy, or you will stand in the fire of betrayal and choose yourself anyway. And it's not just about the moment itself. It's about the dozens of moments that led to it. It's about the subtle pattern changes, the way she smiled at him, the way she went cold with you, the emotional distance you couldn't name but couldn't deny either, the shift in her voice when she spoke of him, the timing of her laughter, the secrecy of her phone, the way she started fights out of nowhere to justify stepping away from the relationship emotionally, setting fire to it so she could blame the ashes. She made it hard for you to love her so she could justify loving someone else. And in that tangled web of emotional confusion, she's still spinning one final lie. It's not what it looks like. But Stoic wisdom tells us to trust what is, not what we want to believe. If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, the ancient text says. That principle applies here, because the path to peace doesn't begin with a lie, it begins with the unflinching acceptance of truth. You saw her, you saw them, you saw enough, and now you need to act. But here's the problem most men face. They freeze. They want more proof. They want a confession. They want her to admit it, so they can be sure. But admission is not the point. Ownership is not coming. And even if it does, it won't heal the wound. Because if someone cheats and then lies about it, the problem isn't just the betrayal. It's their willingness to manipulate your mind to protect their image. You're not dealing with confusion. You're dealing with self-preservation on her part. And the man she's been confiding in, he won't apologize. He won't confess. He'll pretend like he was just there, just helping, just being a friend. But you felt it. You felt the betrayal in her absence before you saw it in her actions. You felt it when she stopped confiding in you and started checking out emotionally. You felt it when she stopped being present. And here's what you must understand. No one who truly loves you would put you in a position to feel like that. No one who values you would ever make you feel crazy for asking questions rooted in your intuition. And that's the mark of betrayal. Not what they did, but how they handled it when confronted. Not with remorse, not with humility, but with another layer of dishonesty. So what now? You have a choice. You can beg for clarity, or you can embody clarity. You can ask more questions, or you can stop asking and start deciding. Reclaim your ground. Don't collapse into the emotion of it. Channel it. Pain becomes power the moment it meets purpose. And your purpose now is to heal, to grow, to rebuild. Not in revenge, not in resentment, but in resolve. Start by anchoring into your physical strength. Run daily. Even when your chest is heavy, even when the memories replay like a movie. Put on your shoes and go. Sweat out the betrayal. Transform the heartbreak into action. Lift until your bones remember your power. Your body is not just a vehicle, it's a declaration. Every rep you push through when you want to quit is a statement that says, I am still here. Then move to your mental structure. Organize your days, set alarms, build systems. Don't just survive, create. Create habits that lead you back to your own dignity. Plan your meals, track your time, build goals around your fitness, your finance, your future. Become the man who is too focused to beg for loyalty. Then reclaim your emotional clarity. Journal every morning. Sit in silence. Ask yourself, what kind of life do I want? Not in theory, but in action. Write it down. And if she calls or texts to explain herself, you don't need to answer. You don't need closure. You need distance. You need peace. You need progress. And here's the twist that will come later. She will spin it. She will tell others it wasn't real, that you overreacted, that nothing happened, and some may believe her. But you don't need the world to know your side. You just need to live it. Because Stoicism isn't about proving your truth. It's about living so powerfully that your truth becomes undeniable. And when you move with that kind of clarity, the people who once lied to you can no longer stand in your presence. You expose them by existing. And one day when she sees the man you've become, the one who didn't collapse, who didn't cave, who used her betrayal as the catalyst for transformation, she will realize what she lost. But by then, she won't even know how to speak to the man you've become. Because it's not what it looks like may have been her final excuse. But your growth, your focus, your future, it will be exactly what it looks like. Powerful, peaceful, and permanently out of reach. You've seen the patterns. You've felt the betrayal. You've lived through the confusion, the pain, the guilt they tried to lay on your shoulders. You've tried to be the man society told you to be, calm, understanding, tolerant, emotionally available. But every time you gave more, you were left with less. You were told to open up, only to be walked over. You were told to express yourself, only to be labeled weak. You were told to be patient, only to watch the same woman who preached loyalty become emotionally entangled with someone who wasn't even hiding it. And where was your blueprint? Where was your guide? Where was the voice that taught you how to navigate these betrayals? How to stand firm without becoming bitter? How to become untouchable without turning cold? It didn't exist. So I built one. In just a few days, I'm releasing the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook, the most powerful, unapologetic guide ever written for men who are tired of guessing, tired of hurting, tired of repeating the same cycles and calling it love. This isn't a book filled with fluffy psychology or vague advice. This is the code for any man who's been emotionally blindsided and refuses to ever be caught off guard again. This blueprint will teach you how to read between her words, how to build the mental and emotional discipline to walk away from manipulation in silence, how to become the kind of man no woman dares play with, how to never question your worth again because you've built it from the inside out. And this book will not be available forever. We are capping the number of sales to only a few. Why? Because we don't want this wisdom diluted. We want it in the hands of serious men only. Men who are ready to break free, level up, and rewrite their story. If that's you, I want you to comment below. Blueprint. Comment blueprint if you're done being the man who gets played. Comment blueprint if you're ready to become the man who sets the standard. And if you found value in this, if this message hit home, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. You're not just helping yourself. You're helping this message reach the men who've been suffering silently, thinking they're alone. You're helping save lives, rebuild futures, and end cycles of emotional chaos for good.